Harriet Tregoning is director of the DC Office of Planning in Washington. She became the District of Columbia's director of the Office of Planning in January of 2007. Prior to this, she was director of the Governor's Institute on Community Design and co-founder with former Maryland Governor Paris Glendening and executive director of the Smart Growth Leadership Institute. Harriet served the state of Maryland as both Secretary of Planning and then as the nation's first state-level cabinet secretary for Smart Growth. Prior to her tenure in Maryland state government, Harriet was the Director of Development, Community, and Environment at the US EPA. At EPA, Harriet helped to found and coordinate the National Smart Growth Network, a national partnership program designed to inform and accelerate innovative smart growth policies and practices. Harriet's academic training is in engineering and public policy, and she was a Loeb Fellow at the Harvard University Graduate School of Design.
It's a very exciting time to be working in a city, and I feel very privileged to be in the District of Columbia, where we really are working hard to make green and sustainable development practices literally part of our brand, part of who we are, our identity as a city. Because you know, the kind of chart that Norm showed is a chart that cities actually pay attention to. You know, we compete with each other. You know, not just for bragging rights, but there's a global competition that's going on around the world. Here in Washington, we used to think our competition was Montgomery County or Prince George's County, you know, or maybe as far as Anne Arundel County, you know, but increasingly we don't think of it that way. We compete as a region with the regions of Paris, of London, of Seoul, of Sao Paulo. We compete globally. And cities that are successful in attracting capital, successful in attracting residents and talent, all you bright young things who are studying real estate here, where are you going to go when you graduate? The kind of place that you want to look at, that attracts you to be there, you know, cities want to figure that out and be those places that can attract that talent. And one of the ways in which we compete with each other is on our green and sustainable development practices. But I'm going to talk very briefly about 4 things where cities that are being successful, attracting that kind of investment, they're globally competitive, they're sustainable cities, and they focus on 4 things. They focus on making the most of the unique assets that they have. I know that it's Parents' Weekend, right? Here at Georgetown, so the students are here, their parents are here, and I know that Georgetown is a really impressive place when you come to visit it. I mean, it's a storied university, and a lot of it is because of the great buildings like this. They're unique. You know, if a university was going to be being thrown up somewhere on the, you know, in the suburbs, it could never have the kind of magnificent buildings that Georgetown has. And that's part of what makes it so attractive to be here. Well, that's true for cities too. We used to think that we would compete successfully with suburbs, by being generic, by offering lots of free parking, you know, and that, you can see how that worked for us, you know, not so well. We've finally come to realize that we have real unique assets. We have historic buildings. Catherine Buell, the head of our Historic Preservation Review Board, is here today. I don't know if Catherine can raise her hand. There she is. You know, there's a passion for historic buildings, not just because amazing things happen there, but because of their quality, their great architecture, their fabulous construction. And you know, cities used to tear those buildings down to build something that 20 years later people were, you know, anxious to get rid of because of the quality being so poor. Cities used to ignore their riverfronts, use them as sewers and places that they would store their disamenities, all the uses that weren't good enough in in the 20th century United States for their highest and best real estate investments. But today we're rediscovering the Anacostia River, a river that's literally been forgotten in the district for more than 30 years, and looking to develop up and down the entirety of that coast. And we have more than 20 miles of riverfront that we have to develop that we've literally ignored. The other important thing that globally competitive cities do is pay attention to transportation. Here in the district, we're really lucky. We have the metro. The metro is a wonderful asset, and it's absolutely vital. I can't imagine what it would be like on a given workday without the metro system. But we've found that the metro is necessary but not sufficient. We need so many more transportation choices than just Metro, because we do so many different types of travel. So we've really focused, especially in the last half dozen years, on really providing an abundance of transportation choices. We have greatly increased our bus offerings, including, many of you might know, the circulator that runs to Georgetown from Union Station. It's premium transit service. We're trying to use technology and simple smarts to take away some of the reasons most people had for not riding the bus. We paint the route right on the side of the bus so you don't have to guess where it's going. And we use technology so that on your cell phone, you can find out exactly when the bus is going to be arriving. So you never have to wait or wonder, if you've missed the bus or where it's supposed to be, where you're supposed to pick it up. We have 850 zip cars in more than 27 neighborhoods. Now more than half the trips that are taken in Washington, D.C. are taken by something other than automobile, single occupancy automobile. We carpool, we walk, we bike, and we take transit. Last month, we launched the nation's largest bike sharing program, 1,000 bikes at 100 locations, called Capital Bike Share. And I'm really delighted. I know Eleni, I think, has left us, but GSA, the Office of Personal Management, and the Department of Transportation are our very first corporate partners in bike share. So they bought memberships for their employees, and we know they're just going to be the first, but they think that's a very important part of their transportation portfolio, because that's really what transportation is for us now. No one is a single thing. No one drives every day. No one takes Metro every day. No one walks every day. We have a portfolio of transportation, and for different parts of the trip, we might do very different things, and that's really what people love, an abundance of choice. So finally, I'll just mention green and sustainable development practices. In 2006, we passed the nation's most stringent green building law. Boston followed very quickly behind us, but we were the first. And we were very concerned about the private sector and not wanting to have the private sector bear the brunt of the differential in cost. Construction costs between conventional development and green development. So we said, you know what? For the first several years, it'll just be public buildings. And then if we have skin in the game, if we're giving you land or we're subsidizing your project, you're going to have to build green. But strictly private sector buildings, not till 2012. Well, the private sector, our real estate community in Washington didn't wait a second. They began to build green as soon as the law passed, some of them before that. We now have 129 LEED certified buildings, 814 in the pipeline for LEED certification, way more than any other city in America in terms of that pipeline, and an equivalent number of ENERGY STAR buildings. 17 acres of green roofs in 91 buildings. Only Chicago is doing better than us on green roofs. But the setting, the context is very important for these green buildings. They're almost all in mixed-use neighborhoods. They're almost all places where retail is convenient, where residential is nearby, where there are amenities, cultural and institutional, because convenience is part of the equation. Green isn't just about the environment, and you can't honestly sell it to people simply on the environment. It has to be part of a package, part of a quality of life and a quality of place. So even when I talk about transportation, the cities are going to be increasingly relying on the real estate sector to be a partner in new transportation investments. In the same way that GSA has stepped up to be a partner with us on the rollout of Capital Bike Share, we're looking to expand our streetcar, bring it back to Washington with a 37-mile streetcar system. And part of the way we're going to finance it is by looking at those corridors where we think there's the best potential run-up in value. And we're going to be looking for owners to partner with us to help to make that happen. So thank you.